Now let's talk about another sensitive period. This one is called refinement of the sensory perceptions, and it, of course, involves the senses. So just to review, our senses are visual, tactile, auditory, olfactory, meaning the nose, and gustatory, meaning taste. Our senses have been critical in our evolution for our survival. They help us sense danger, let's say smoke, or when food is spoiled, but they also enrich our experiences. Children are drawn to explore the world with their senses, and this is why we see babies putting things in their mouth. They're not necessarily just tasting them, but they're gaining sensory input. From birth, our brains are taking in sensory impressions from our five senses in their totality. And what's happening is they're being ordered in our mind into these classifications. Remember that sensitive period for the sense of order? This is supporting that process. These categories that the brain is gathering and putting together are quite broad for a very young child. So a category of things that are soft and things that are rough. But as a child grows and has more experience with the world and gains more sensory input, varieties of sensory input, these categories start to become quite refined. We can see how important the development of movement is when we understand how important sensory exploration is for the child. The feet can take a child to an experience, and then the hands are going to help facilitate that exploration. The hands are going to take the object to the nose to smell, the mouth to taste, bring it up to the eyes for a closer look, the ear to hear, see if it makes a sound. The hands are going to be taking in texture information. This information that is gained is categorized in the brain so that it can be linked to the objects that are being explored. This is going to be remembered as a link to the experience of that sense. Around the age of 1.5 years, the child shows us this affinity for very small objects. These are those things that we really don't even see, and when they present them to us with great enthusiasm, our response is usually, "How did you see that?" They love to watch ants and ladybugs. There's this special sensitivity that they're going through for these tiny objects, and we can see this as a further refinement of the visual sense. In the last half of the sensitive period, around 2.5 years of age to 4.5 years of age, the child really can see very fine differences in details and attributes, characteristics of objects. It's also around this time that their vocabulary is growing and they have words that are now attached to these sensations. So now when they communicate, they're doing it on a much more rich level. Whereas an orange, when they were younger, was just an orange. As they become older, 3, 4.5, an orange has many other attributes. Not only is it orange, but it could be bumpy, it could be cool, it could smell sweet. There are these other identifiers that the child is able to attach to this object. With the discernment of greater and finer details in objects, the child's able to create abstractions within their mind. And an abstraction is a characteristic that we can understand in our mind's eye without an object ever being present. A great example is the taste sour. When you think of the taste sour, we get a mental image. We get an abstraction of that taste. And in my mind, I see a lemon or a lemon slice in my mind. So it's with the more experience the child has, the greater the amount of abstractions that are available to him. And when the child is able to attach the language to that abstraction, then it becomes very understandable and very permanent in the mind. Dr. Montessori felt very strongly about educating the senses. So in the Children's House, we have an entire area dedicated just to that. Now, there's nothing in the Children's House in that sensorial area that's offering anything new to the child. The child has felt textures that are rough and soft. They have heard sound that is loud and soft. They have tasted sweet and sour. It's the way that this information is delivered to the child that is important. The way that it is delivered is by an isolation of quality. The child can take a quality, let's say taste, and explore it. They can explore the taste without having any food attached to it. And then they can engage in activities that are enriching the child's experience with that quality, like pairing. The interesting component of this is we use something called a materialized abstraction. The abstraction is that quality, so let's say sound, for example. And sound is put into a physical material. This is the materialized part of the abstraction. So we're taking an abstraction, we're putting it into a material, and then we're masking identifiers. So all of the pieces of this material look exactly the same. This is isolating that quality for the child. So the only thing that is drawn to their consciousness is working with that quality. A great example are the sound cylinders. We have 2 boxes of 6 identical cylinders in each box. The cylinders are filled with different materials, let's say rice, sand, small pebbles. There's an identical set in each box. So the child, when they look at these cylinders, there's no way to tell them apart unless they listen to the cylinders. Then they can engage in activities where they're pairing cylinders. They're refining that sense of hearing. They're refining the categories. They're organizing the categories in their mind. This is the purpose of the sensorial area. It lends itself as a support to really help the child organize the information they already have in regard to the senses in their mind. We also offer language to these materials, which helps in that rich communication. Dr. Montessori felt that the sensory education was a way to truly build the child's intelligence.